until the point that Angel's Envy was founded, finishing really didn't exist in American whiskey in a big way. And so it was a bit of a gamble for us to found ourselves on that notion. But 15 years on, I think we've found that it's paid off.
On the banks of the Ohio River lies a stretch of history soaked in charred oak and corn mash. This is Kentucky, not the version you see on postcards, the real kind. Rooted deep in limestone, Bible verses and bloodlines, it's the kind of place where the spirit runs thicker than water and traditions are made to be followed. For generations, bourbon producers have followed a strict set of guidelines that govern how America's spirit is made, bottled and barreled. Charred new oak barrels, no additives, aged and distilled in America. These rules aren't suggestions as much as they are scripture. In this part of the world, whiskey lives and dies by the barrel. But what if one barrel was just the beginning of the story? What happens when someone decides to go completely against the grain and push the boundaries of blending, aging, and distilling? This is the story of Angel's Envy, and the moment bourbon's future stopped asking for permission.
It all begins on Whiskey Row, the birthplace of America's native spirit. In the mid-1800s, this bustling street was the epicenter of bourbon commerce and the thriving economic hub of Louisville. But when Prohibition hit in the 1920s, things changed. The hotbed of bourbon producers was reduced to a smouldering ash, with only the most established labels remaining. Today, Whiskey Row has undergone a remarkable revitalisation, fusing old-world charm with a new sense of modern sophistication. And at its helm stands a pioneering label with an unmistakable name.
If you're familiar with aging whiskey or any other spirit in a barrel, you typically lose about 5% to evaporation. And there's an old myth that angels watching over your rickhouse would essentially take their fair share. So angels share, angels envy. Essentially, Lincoln tasted the whiskey out of the barrel and said, man, the angels are gonna be mad they don't get more of this. Angel's Envy was born.
As the most visited distillery downtown, Angel's Envy is the undisputed jewel of Louisville's revival. The cathedral-style design, complete with copper stills and bright open spaces, speaks to the label's undeniable sense of tradition. But there is a modernity that drives Angel's Envy, one that global brand ambassador Angel Tedder tells me has been there since day one, when Bourbon Hall of Famer Lincoln Henderson hatched plans for a boundary-pushing release.
Lincoln always wanted to bring whiskey production back downtown to where it all started, historic Whiskey Row. So we were able to break ground in 2013, and the first whiskey came off the still in 2016, a few months after we opened. And it's been pretty much just a hockey stick of growth since then.
So we talked a lot about Lincoln Henderson, but who was this wonderful man and how did he kick off Angel's Envy?
Yeah, so he started our company after his retirement, which is kind of funny. I don't think I'll ever retire either. So he was at Brown-Forman for nearly 40 years. He developed Gentleman Jack, Jack Single Barrel, Woodford Reserve, and Woodford was really like his crown jewel before Angels. He loved that mash bill. He liked the aging process of toasting the barrel first and then charring it. So there's 2 layers of flavor the whiskey goes through. But he always wanted to secondarily finish because he had a huge respect for what they do in Scotland and Japan. So he came back here and really was kind of encouraged by his family, you know, let's do your own thing. So this is really sort of his life's work in a bottle.
More than 15 years and countless barrels later, Lincoln Henderson's ethos lives on, and the man tasked with keeping that heavenly agreement is Owen Martin. Trained in the art of Scotch production, the Kansas City native's extensive knowledge of secondary cask and maturation makes him the ideal person to lead Angel's Envy's unique journey into finished bourbon. As the label's master distiller, the bourbon expert's indelible mark is left on every barrel and bottle that leaves the warehouse, and it's a job he doesn't take lightly.
I think if you look at tradition and traditional processes, there's power there, right? There's that lineage, that history, but to me it can also just be constraining in some sense. And so as a whiskey maker, to be able to work at a brand that is pioneering gives me pretty much an open field to do whatever I want in authentic and innovative ways, but I'm not constrained in any way that tradition might inhibit.
Now we talk a lot about secondary finishing, but what is cask finished bourbon?
Yeah, so basically taking matured whiskey, so in our case around 5-year-old bourbon, so primarily made of corn, aged in new char barrels, and so that's the point at which most bourbons are bottled, but for us it's putting it into a barrel, a secondary barrel that held something else. So that may be wine, maybe spirits, And so that barrel will have infused some of that flavor, which then lends that flavor to the whiskey we put in it.
And I'm sure that changes the way that the flavor imparts through the whiskey throughout the whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, again, taking it more as a nod towards Scotch whiskey making. So finishings existed in Scotland for over 50 years now. A relatively new concept to American whiskey making, but basically the idea being that you're layering flavors that are on there, right? So like the existing bourbon has a fruitiness to it, has oakiness to it, right? And then the finishing cask that we're using is highlighting that or contrasting that or playing with that in some sense. So our flagship is a port finished bourbon, so it's been around for 15 years now. And so, as I said, it's about 5-year-old matured bourbon. Spends about another 6 months in ruby port barrels, and so that's how we pretty much made our name.
You mentioned, obviously, it's a new thing to America. What was the aversion to cask finishing here in the US?
Yeah, I mean, each spirits industry, or I guess each whiskey industry has its strictness, I guess you would say. And so we're stricter on barreling, right? So by law, most American whiskeys have to be a brand new barrel. Really, I think that's, I don't want to say limiting, but it is the hallmark of American whiskey. And I think it's, for us, the avenue we saw to kind of expand that or push the boundaries a little bit via finishing to differentiate ourselves. So as a brand, I mean, directly outside these doors on our wall, it says revere tradition, embrace progress. And to me, that's as Angel's Envy as anything. Finishing is just a piece of that, right? It's taking ideas from other industries and applying that to the more traditional bourbon industry in innovative ways.
The rickhouse is where the tale of two barrels unfolds. Inside these creaky walls, Owen's spectacular spirit goes through its second transformation. Once matured, it's transferred into finishing barrels, port wine cask for the classic, rum cask for the rye. And it's here that Angel's Envy diverges from every other American whiskey.
That's going to be probably the highest proof bourbon that we have around, right? By that, I mean, this is the top floor of the rickhouse, obviously the hottest. And so our bottom floors are going to be cooler and more humid and function almost more like a Scottish environment. So basically what that means is that the longer we age a barrel there, the proof's going to go down. We don't emphasize the individual floors. What we do is we blend them together before we put them into the port barrel.
Obviously, the whiskey is produced and made in the distillery.
Yep.
But I think here, in places like the rickhouse, but also in the finishing rooms, is where the magic happens, right?
Oh, this is absolutely my happy place. I try to get here any and all possibilities that I can. This is where I actually get the real work done, I think.
Flavor-wise, these barrels, port casks and things like that is exactly where you try and get that Angel's Envy signature style, right?
Yes, yeah, and I mean, especially right now, in that sort of cusp between seasons is when we're getting that big push into the wood, and that's what's taking the color and flavor with it when it pulls back, right? That wonderful ruby color, the soft fruitiness, nuttiness, like this is the season that this is all happening right now.
Cheers.
Cheers.
As Owen explains, finishing is not blending. You aren't covering flaws. You are enhancing flavours, viewing the spirit through a second lens. This aging process is a subtle art, but not all things are so delicate. To build a dream, you need the right foundations. In bourbon, that means barrels, and the best barrels are forged in fire. For over 60 years, the team at Kelvin Cooperage has been building, breaking down, and toasting barrels with an innate sense of purpose. If indeed Lincoln Henderson's vision was to bend the rules, then these are the fire-blackened hands that did it.
We do things a little bit differently here. We're toasting only over natural oak fires. So the only fuel we use in the fire is oak that we generate through the process. So there's no gas, nothing artificial in our fires. When you're toasting the barrel, you get a really nice baked bread, marzipan-y, almondy, really, really pleasant smell. Once we've activated those wood sugars, we then let the barrel fully ignite, and that's the barrel charring. We've got no timers and no temperature controls. We want our guys to be using all their senses. So it really is sight, smell, feel on the barrel. A lot of other cooperages are removing the human element. We think that human element is really key.
Looking at this spectacular dance of fire and brimstone, it's not hard to see that the cooperage workers are the unsung heroes of the whiskey industry. Blue-collar alchemists who rarely get the spotlight but are essential to the story, their chapter is penned in smoke and soot. But for others, it's a case of soil and sweat.
How long have you been running Langley Farms for?
We started Langley Farms in 1990. We moved here.
What do you love the most about your job?
Just working with the people, working with the land, watching the crops grow. If you're at a bar and somebody orders an angel envy on the rocks, you say, hey, I know a guy that brought that corn there, you know. It's a good community of people too. And it's something to be known for, something that I had a part in. I know I don't do any of the distilling or any of the marketing, any of the labeling, but I did have some part in it, and that feels good.
Back on Whiskey Row is where Angel's Envy gets its wings. Intricately adorned with engraved typography and a smattering of shimmering gold, Angel's Envy's bottle stands tall amongst its contemporaries, a tribute to its namesake and to the fleeting nature of the Angel's share. And through the brand's unique personalization program, guests can engrave names, dates, even love letters into that very bottle.
Not only want you to be able to come here to the distillery, but to bring gifts back to celebrate. We're one of the most highly giftable spirits. So being able to personalize it with a message or your name or to commemorate a certain occasion, it is really cool that you can get this gift from Louisville itself.
Angel walks us through the process from bottling to the personalized engravings that make each bottle a gift, a memory, a piece of history. At Angel's Envy, even the smallest touch is considered, because in a world of mass production, offering something personal is revolutionary.
We see everyone drinks Angel's Envy. It's not necessarily in a dark room with a cigar at night. It's in the summertime in a spritz, or a lot of people were like, this was my gateway bourbon. I didn't really prefer it before, but I love port wine, so I tried it, and now I'm getting all my friends to drink it too. So those experiences stick with them.
If you could have people come away from the Angel's Envy distillery with one lesson learned, what would it be?
That tradition doesn't always have to be boring, and innovation doesn't always have to be completely outside the box. It can be something for everyone.
We've talked a bit about Lincoln Henderson's legacy, but for you specifically, when all's said and done, what would you want your legacy to be?
I guess when I think about legacy at its most basic, I'm a believer that the liquid should probably do the talking. So the releases we put down, the special releases, the core releases will speak for themselves. When I think about legacy more broadly, it's about the people and the ideas that you leave in your wake. So obviously Angel's Envy wouldn't exist without Lincoln, but I would say finished whiskey in the US wouldn't exist the way it does now without Lincoln's vision of how things should go. And so that's kind of where I think, what comes after me? How can I keep paving that road? What boundaries can I push that then allow people that are smarter and more creative and the next generation to come behind me and even build upon that?
Being here in Louisville, in the heart of bourbon country, it's easy to get swept up in the romanticism. But Angel's Envy stands out as a sleek silhouette against the skyline, a modern cathedral to a reimagined faith. Tours are intimate, conversations are real, there's no velvet rope between you and the whiskey. And when you see the tale of two barrels firsthand, you learn how the finishing process actually works, how the Angel share ascends into the rafters, and how what's left behind can become something more than mere bourbon. It's a story that continues with every bottle poured, every barrel filled, and every rule questioned. And for that, you get back a handful of contrarians who know the value of operating just outside the law. So here's to Kentucky, a Bible Belt state that baptizes its bourbon in time and tradition, to Angel's Envy, a name that dares to defy the heavens, proving that sometimes it's not what you lose, but what you earn makes all the difference. It's a story twice written in oak and handed down by way of beauty, bourbon, and a better deal than the Angels.